How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about socialism. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Can it work in the 21st century? Why hasn't it worked before? What's really going on with it? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, aside from just the debates I see online all the time about it, and it's been kind of eating at me for a while, aside from that, you have this young lady right over my left-hand shoulder by the name of Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, a 28-year-old woman in New York, a former waitress who won the Democratic congressional primary, and she was up against a 10-term incumbent, Joe Crowley. It was humongous upset. I don't think he saw it coming. I don't believe anybody saw it coming. I don't even think she saw it coming. And you see the headline right over my left-hand shoulder. Here's the difference between a socialist and a democratic socialist. Now, I've only skimmed this article to see what it says a little bit here and there, but the gist of it is that they're going to try and defend socialism. We'll see what they say in this article, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. These subheads under the picture we'll get into in the article, because if I'm not mistaken, all of those have their own points that are made in the actual text. And the article reads, after 28-year-old Alexandria Ocasio Cortez stunning upset against Rep. Joe Crowley in the New York Democratic congressional primary on Tuesday, the word socialist was repeatedly used to describe her. Ocasio Cortez is a registered member of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, and is a self-described socialist. Now, I want to see how they defend socialism, because from what I've been able to gather on my own and from what I've been told for a very long period of time in my life is that this never works. It's basically communism, or it leads to it. It's not that much of a difference between socialism and communism, and it just won't work. The best way to have societies push forward is through capitalism. Is it perfect? No, nothing is, but it's much better and much more natural than socialism or communism. But for now, I digress. Socialist remains a dirty and often misunderstood term in the realm of U.S. politics. The Cold War, in which animosity and paranoia toward the Soviet Union was pervasive in the U.S., is largely to thank for that. Okay, so we're blaming the Cold War for any kind of negative feelings towards socialism and not the track record of it. I mean, we see USSR, that collapsed. Venezuela is collapsing. We've seen Pol Pot, Cambodia. We've seen this same story play out over and over. Cuba, we've seen it play out over and over. People die from starvation, from outright murder. It's just not a good thing to actually have. Germany, the National Socialist, aka Nazi, that is an acronym for National Socialist. We see where it leads. So I don't see how history can be ignored here when we're talking about why people may have an adverse reaction to the word socialist and why it has a negative reputation. But let's keep going. But what does it mean to be a socialist versus a democratic socialist? And is there even a difference? And subhead, what is socialism? It depends on who you're talking to. Okay, so I guess we have different definitions of what's going on. People say whatever they want to say. They may even call capitalism socialism. I don't know. But let's see what they say. A socialist, in a traditional sense, is an adherent of socialism. Okay, I think that can be pretty much gathered if you know how to add 2 plus 2. Socialism can be defined as, quote, a system of social organization in which private property, check this out, private property and the distribution of income are subject to social control. What does that really mean? How can private property be under the jurisdiction of the public, of other people? It's like if I have a house or if I have a car, the ownership of that is subject to whatever the people at large think. So, okay, that's how you have racial stuff that happens and ethnic things that happen. Let's say you live in a country where 51% of the people believe that you shouldn't necessarily live where you live. That's like South Africa, right? The Boer, they may have their farmland, they may have their houses, but here comes the government and says, you know what, that belongs to us now, leave. I mean, that's how people get disenfranchised. That's how wars happen. That's how conflict happens. I don't see how that can be seen as a good thing, but Maybe they don't mean that. Maybe they mean something else, but that's pretty much what I'm gathering. Let's see what they say as the article continues. In other words, it's state-controlled economy in which the state controls the means of production, factories, offices, resources, and firms. There are also forms of socialism in which the means of production are controlled and owned by workers. Okay, I mean, what does a worker mean? Like, all right, if I'm, X, Y, and Z plumbing, and it's my company and I hire people, do the workers at that point control my company that I actually came up with? I put the money behind. So basically they can just take over my company because it worked for me. What's going on with that? Or the state takes it over. I have a plumbing company, and then the state of Tennessee, state of Virginia, whatever, the federal government comes in and takes it, and then they run it, and then they hire people. I don't understand how that really works. Where is the incentive to actually have private property? Where is the incentive to come up with any kind of innovation? When the government can come in and just take what you have and use it for themselves, they have no actual incentive to improve upon it or make it better. One thing about business that I know is that people are always trying to figure out a way to be on a cutting edge, how to make acquisitions, how to do different things that will help their company go forward. The federal government, local government, or whatever, they have no interest in that. The workers don't really have interest in that either. All they do is just go to work and do their particular task. The idea of socialism is an old school thing anyway, back when factory labor was very simple and it didn't change. Those days are gone, but let's see what else they say. From an academic standpoint, there's an ongoing debate about what socialism really is. The academic debates about socialism's meaning are huge and arcane and rife with disagreements. But what all definitions have in common is either the elimination of the market or strict containment. Wow, so no market. I mean, I can't tell if it's socialism or communism or what's the difference. No free market, or you got to have it controlled. So the government basically tells you everything you got to do. If you go to the store, it's probably one brand of toilet paper provided to you by the government. And is this the reason why in Venezuela they're in lines to get toilet paper? Because the government controls the means of it. But what if the government did not control it and it was up to the individual people that own the particular company that manufactures toilet paper? Would there be a line for it? I doubt it. You got to have a free and open market to have competition, because competition breeds better products. It also breeds better prices. When the government has it, they could charge you whatever they want to charge. And if it's free, then who's paying for it? At a certain point, we all pay for it, which makes us all become poor. In the quest to have more equality, we become more equally impoverished. But I digress. What do socialists believe in? In general, socialists believe the government should provide a range of basic services to the public, such as healthcare and education, for free or at a significant discount. Now, basic services, I don't think that healthcare and education is a basic service. It's pretty complex. You're talking about billions of dollars and a lot of different people that are involved. The term basic is very loaded. Basic services would be something like being able to get a driver's license at the DMV. That's really basic. That can be done with one person with a machine. But healthcare, that requires a lot of different people to be working in harmony. Very highly skilled and trained and educated people, doctors, nurses, lawyers work at the hospital, people that have a lot of education and know-how about a particular field have to be here. Same thing with education. You got middle school, high school, elementary school. You got after school programs, preschool programs, people that work at the school, guidance counselors, principals, janitorial staff, the actual teachers themselves. This is not a simple process. It's not a basic thing. It's a loaded term when you say basic services such as healthcare and education, but I'll move on. In the present day, democratic socialists and socialists are often treated as interchangeable terms, which can often be confusing, given democratic socialists don't necessarily think the government should immediately take control of all aspects of the economy. They do, however, generally believe the government should help provide for people's most basic needs and help all people have an equal chance at achieving success. Ocasio Cortez's platform, for example, calls for Medicaid for all, tuition-free college, and treats housing as a right. Well, here's the thing about that. How is the government going to be able to do that if they don't seize control over the means of production? They'll seize control one way or the other. Either they'll come in, take the production, and then do it themselves, and whatever money they make, they put back into the nation, into the economy, or they'll tax you to death so they become like a silent third partner. You do all the work, they take all the money. That's how that goes. And then they give it to people that so-called are in need. But here's the thing that people don't really get when they're talking about socialism. Socialism removes all incentive for any kind of advancement. If you have free healthcare, why would anybody become a doctor or a nurse? Free healthcare means that at a certain point, it has to be paid for by somebody. If the government is paying for it, they're going to lowball everybody and try to pay them all an equal amount. Okay. Equity. There's no such thing as equality when it comes to human beings. We're all equally human. That's about it. We all are of the same species. We all have that in common. Aside from that, that's it. We're all different. So to treat everybody as the same is not really a thing that makes any sense. And it becomes unfair when you legislate that everyone must be treated fairly, because some people are going to be more successful than others, and the government comes in and squashes any kind of difference between you. That's not fair. I'm successful, I'm educated, I know what I'm doing, and I'm forced to be at the same level as somebody who has none of those skills. I'm naturally better than this person when it comes to being able to make money. I should be able to do that if I so choose. Now you're getting into a situation where you're not free anymore. You're going back to the plantation type thing. You're being told what to do, when to do it. You're given a very select few number of choices. You're not allowed to chart your own destiny. And tuition-free college, you have to understand, these professors have to get paid. The colleges themselves have to be able to maintain themselves. If the tuition is free, what kind of education are you really getting? Because how much are the teachers being paid? What's their incentive to become better teachers? What's anyone's incentive to become a high level teacher? Why would I become a math teacher? You know, a complicated thing, very difficult, if I'm not getting paid anything more than a fry cook at McDonald's. Where is the incentive for me to strive for excellence when there's no reward at the end of the day, because the government has stifled rewards and they've stifled any kind of incentive to do better? And housing as a right, look, housing is not a right, because in order for you to say that housing is a right, you have to tell others that you are forced to do this. You're forced to build this for no money. And if they do get paid, where does money come from? You're impeding upon others' rights as citizens of the USA to shore up shortfalls of others or to subsidize laziness. It's not fair. Democratic socialists are committed to democracy. Democratic socialists also believe strongly in democracy and democratic principles. They are by no means proponents of authoritarian government systems many Americans associate socialism with. I can't tell. They may not be proponents of it, but the inevitable outcome is an authoritarian rule every single time it happens, because the only way you're going to be able to do a thing like take the means of production and offer free this, you have to be authoritarian in order to enforce these things. I mean, it's logic. As the DSA's website states, at the root of our socialism is a profound commitment to democracy as means and end. As we are unlikely to see an immediate end of capitalism tomorrow, DSA fights for reforms today that will weaken the power of corporations and increase the power of working people. To put it another way, they don't feel socialism should be forced on people, but they are fundamentally anti-capitalist and believe the government should urge privately owned businesses toward granting workers as much control as possible. Why would I grant a worker control over my business? It's my business. If they want to control a business, start their own. That's how that goes. The DSA and Democratic Socialists like Ocasio Cortez place a great deal of emphasis on social justice in conjunction with pushing for an economy that's largely controlled by workers. The DSA supports reforms that will decrease the influence of money in politics, empower ordinary people in workplaces and the economy, and restructure gender and cultural relationships to be more equitable, according to his website. Now, let's pause on the gender and cultural relationships. How are you really going to do that? How are you going to actually intervene with the government and make gender relationships be any different than what they are? Women at a certain point enjoy being women. Men at a certain point enjoy being men. How are you going to have the government come in and influence that? See, that's where the authoritarianism comes in, because the only way you're going to be able to actually do anything there to enforce any kind of rules you put on the table or any kind of guidances or whatever kind of funny word they want to use, the only way you're going to be able to affect change in that situation is to have the government come in and be having a heavy hand. It's very simple. But the article continues. To put it into context, Ocasio Cortez's platform calls for an end to the war on drugs, the demilitarization of police departments, and the abolishment of for-profit prisons. Look, at the end of the day, I'm a fan of the war on drugs. Sorry, I know that might trigger some of y'all, but nah, the war on drugs is needed, because once the country becomes awash in drugs, what happens is it's easy to be toppled from the outside. See, people don't really think that deeply. They just think, oh yeah, I'm smoking weed, I should be left alone. But then when your whole country is inundated in pain pills, all types of other kind of crazy drugs that have come out as a result of legalizing certain drugs or legalizing all drugs, it'll be easy for somebody to come in here and take control. And then they also want no Second Amendment. So you be on drugs, no guns, you'll be a sitting duck. Here's how Senator Bernie Sanders, a self-declared Democratic Socialist, defined it in a 2006 interview. I think Democratic Socialism, that's not what he said, but we'll just ride with that, means the government has got to play a very important role in making sure that as a right of citizenship, all of our people have health care. That as a right, all of our kids, regardless of income, have quality child care, are able to go to college without going deeply into debt. That it means we do not allow large corporations and money interests to destroy our environment. That we create a government in which it is not dominated by big money interests. I mean, to me, it means democracy, frankly. Sanders added, that's all it means. That's the end of the article. But one thing about Bernie Sanders is that this guy has a lot of money. He has a couple big estates. I mean, he's a big time hypocrite. He'll say these little talking points to get people that he's trying to have on his side excited, but does he really mean them? I can't really tell. That was on my chest. I wanted to get it off about socialism. This is not really a real thing. To sum it on up, what they want to do is seize the means of production. That is very scary. If you have a business, they want to be able to come in and take it. This is what happened in Nazi Germany. People think that Adolf Hitler was some kind of right-wing extremist who just hated Jews, but they're looking way too simply at the whole situation. First of all, socialism is a far left thing. I mean, we see it right here. This person is a Democrat, far leftist, and Bernie Sanders, who they quoted, Democrat, far leftist. We know what's going on here. These people are not right-wing at all. Government control and government interference is a left-wing thing. The right wing wants less government control. We want less interference. We want less outside influence. See, Nazi Germany was all about trying to expand borders, open borders, because they invaded Poland, Austria, etc. And they kept people in the country rather than keeping them out. See, all these comparisons to Trump's administration and Nazi Germany make no sense. You need to compare people like the young lady over here and Bernie Sanders to Nazi Germany. Government control, government regulations, bureaucracy, red tape. That was a hallmark of the Nazi system over there in Germany. The Holocaust is a result of what happens at the end. It's the same thing all the time. The Bolshevik Revolution, Pol Pot, Idi Amin, Mao Zedong, the list goes on. So I'm pretty much done. At the end of the day, kids, do not do socialism. Capitalism is where it's at. Some may say that it's unfair, but hey, man, that's life. Life ain't fair. You're not going to have a totally fair system anywhere you go. If you go socialism, you're going to have a lot of despair, a lot of death, a lot of pain. Same thing with communism. Same thing with anarchism or whatever they want to call it. There's never going to be a perfect system. All we can do is strive for the best. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.